How do you define creator?
I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know I'm doing it really, really well.
But yeah, bro, thank you for coming. Been a big fan for a minute.
Appreciate that.
But I always like to ask my guests, like, how would you introduce yourself to someone you just met?
That's funny actually, because I've been around artists over the years that are really like gung ho about like, especially being in hip hop, about like leading with their rap name. You know what I mean? And I always found that like that choice, it's like a knee jerk reaction. Like you meet somebody and are you gonna be like Wrekonize, or people call me Wrek for short? My actual like name Ben like is almost foreign to me at this point. Like people have called me Wrek so long that like my actual name sometimes feels a bit foreign, you know? But still, when I meet people, if I gauge them as like not hip hop enough, I'll be like, yeah, it's Ben, because I don't want to freak them out. Yeah. Or I'm real soft spoken, so like I'll say Wrek, and they'll go Rick, and I'm like, ah, and then I'm too British in my heart to correct them. So sometimes I just be like, yeah, it's Rick. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, when I introduce myself to somebody, it's just in terms of like creatively or what I do, or
I mean, I like to ask that question because I like to see your perspective on what you would tell someone, if it is creatively or it's just like, hey, my name's Ben, or hey, my name's Wrek.
Yeah,
because it is a knee-jerk reaction.
It's such a choose your own adventure for me. Like I admire, like you know, we were signed to Tech Nine for like more than a decade, hung out with him a lot, toured with him a lot. His name is Tech Nine, you know what I mean? Like it's a name, you know. When he says it unabashedly. I'd seen him introduce himself to kids, elderly people, industry people, non-industry people, and the man always said, Tech Nine, how you doing? You know? And I always admired how like brash he was with it, because like I'm just not that, you know, this is not me. So it's like some people will get Wrek, you know, like we got here, everyone looks super like in the industry and the vibe. I'm like, yo, it's Wrek, what's up? You know, cool. And plus I'm coming to an interview, so it's cool. But if I'm in the street and I just meet somebody that's random, like I'll often just say Ben. And then if people ask me what I do, I say musician most of the time. I don't add all the extra trimmings. I'll just say I do,
it's
I do
funny
music,
because
you know?
I'm the same way. So like I was always self-conscious about that. So that's why I started with my DJ name, DJ Zaya, is my last name. Because I was always like, I don't even want to have to deal with that. So if I say, hey, Zaya, my name's Zaya, I'm saying my last name. Some people call me by my last name. Some people call me by my first name. Yeah. But I never felt like I had to like be thinking about like, oh, should I do the DJ name? It's like I'm killing two birds with one stone. So like I kind of just knocked that out.
It's funny because when I picked up the name in middle school, when I chose the name Wrekonize, like it was at a time when like not many people were rapping in Hollywood, because I grew up in Hollywood. And like all the hip hop scene was in Miami. So like my dream was like, it's like, you know, when someone adopts a nickname and they want everyone to call them that, it was almost kind of like that, but no one was rapping. No one was really doing what I was doing. So it was like, I'm going to be Wrek. But then like for that to pick up, it took a while, you know? So then like to get to that, finally that point where people are calling me that, it's funny that I would like get grown and like then start to be self-conscious about it after all those years of being like, no, I'm going to be Wrekonize. I'm going to be Wrek, you know, whatever. So it's a weird, I don't know, it's just how my brain works, you know?
So you were going by Wrekonize in middle school.
Yeah, I chose it in like 6th grade, so like 12 years old.
And what made you like want to choose that name, and what were you doing that you were like, oh, I need like a moniker?
I was into music already, but I hadn't really fully decided that I was gonna like start writing music. And but I was a fan. My dad's a songwriter. My mom's backup singer in his band. When they first met, she was also in her own band. So like music was in the arts was all around my family, but I hadn't fully committed to music yet. At that time, I had a friend, one of my best friends, Eddie Noga at the time, rest in peace, not with us anymore. He lived right down the street from me. I used to go to his house all the time, and he was super into art. His pops was also into art. They did like model cars. They did like canvases, like all kinds of art. And he was getting into graffiti. So at the time, I was like hanging out with him so much, and he was making it look like fun. He was actually pretty good at it, that I was like, maybe I'll try to do graffiti too, you know? So I started trying to learn how to draw and how to do graffiti. I wasn't really that good at it, but on the pathway to, you know, learning it or trying to learn it, we were looking in like books, you know, reference books. And he had a book by Martha Cooper, which is like a famous New York graffiti book called Subway Art. And on that book, on the cover, there was a train, a big bomb train in New York that said Wrekonize like that. And I picked it up and saw it, and I was like, oh, I'm going to start trying to just like, not take the name, but I first just started trying to write it as something I was going to try to learn. Then I started to like the name just by practicing it. And I also like the meaning of it, because my pops, when he was raising me, would be like, look, you got to be observant. You know, you got to be, you know, recognize your surroundings, you know, the people around you, you know, take it all in. So I kind of like related it to the word, and then realized I couldn't really draw. And by the time I realized I couldn't really draw, I kind of just kept the name as a moniker, and then realized like I was going to do music and just kept it for music.
Yeah, so you knew like at an early age you were kind of already diving into the creative arts.
Yeah, definitely. Like my mom, my pops, my grandfather is like a famous stand-up comedian and like thespian in England in the 60s. He was on the Benny Hill show. Like he had a crazy career, like before I was even around. And then he passed when I was young, so I didn't really get to know him too much, but we went to his funeral in England when he died in 93. I was 10. And all the celebrities and all the people he'd done TV and movies with, it was like a big ass funeral. And I had never seen anything like it, you know? So as a kid, I'm like, this is dope. Like the camaraderie, and also just like there's famous people here. You know what I mean? It was a weird vibe, but it made, like, in the beginning, I saw what he did and I just wanted to do theater. So like in the beginning, it really all started with that. I was looking at him, seeing what he did. He was funny. He did movies. He did stand up. And I was like, yo, I want to do theater. You know, I want to do drama. I want to act. So I started going to school for that. And I did it for 3 years in middle school, but I ended up bailing out of it because I was going to a magnet school in Broward, and the school was hella rough because they were gentrifying it, busing in magnet kids. And it was a low income like neighborhood. And the kids who went to school there felt some type of way about the artist kids that were getting bussed in and getting put up in the nice new facility. So there was a lot of tension between the kids, and then it was racial tension too. So it was like, yo, there would be Cracker Day or whatever, and whatever white kids or white looking kids getting fucked up. And
sounds like a 90s movie.
Yeah, it was that. It was really that. And so I loved the program. It was $1 million magnet program. It was amazing. Like the theater program and the sets that we got to work with, like, amazing.
What school was it?
It was called Parkway Middle. It was off Broward Boulevard. It's still there, actually. And so by the time I got to the end of 8th grade, my mom was like, do you want to continue on with theater, which would be Dillard High School in Broward? And I was like, man, I just don't want to do this anymore, because I was so fed up with the culture and the vibe and the environment that I was like, man, I just don't want to have to worry about walking down the fucking hall. You know what I'm saying? So I said, no, I'm going to bail. And then I went to my home high school, which was South Broward. And South Broward was a marine biology magnet. So my mom was like, just do that because it'll look good on your resume. Turns out I'm not really interested in marine biology. But at the same time, I'm like, cool, I'll do that, but I'll go to the drama program. When you come from $1 million magnet program and then go to your local high school drama program, it's like Dangerous Minds. It was horrible. I walked in there, literally looked around, and I was like, nah, this ain't it. So then I bailed. So I stopped doing theater, but that's how it all really, creative arts really started from that.
So you're a thespian.
I wanted to be so bad. I still have like low key dreams. Like Burns from Mayday just did a film with Garcia actually. And I went and I flew out there just to kick it with them. And like, I still have low key undercover aspirations to like act for real, but I just don't pursue it. I feel like it's almost like the boat already, sailed.
Nah, but I don't think the boat ever sails. Like,
you're right.
Especially you're already you're in the music industry, but I mean, who's to say you can't pivot and,
It's true. This is true. It would require like a strong like push for me to really make that pivot. But I feel like I could do it. It would just require that decision,
for sure.
Which I've been like teetering on for years.
But when did you get into the music then? That you were like, okay, I think this is what I want to kind of start dabbling in.
I started like during those middle school years, I got super into hip hop. Before that, like I was messing around with songwriting because I saw my dad. My dad had moved to New York, so I was visiting my dad like twice a year. And he had an apartment in Lower East Side, Manhattan. And me and my sister would go up there and hang out with him for a month during Christmas break or summer break. And I'd see him writing songs. And one time me and my sister asked him as a 9 and 7-year-old, like, how do you write a song? Like, how does that work? What do you do? How do you do it? So my pop was like, all right, cool, I'll show you. So he like sat us down and was like, all right, let's write the song together. So we wrote lyrics for a song together, 9 and 7. And then he booked studio time, because imagine this is way before home studios. We went to a studio in New York, got in the booth, recorded. And then that was my first like studio experience at 9. So I
sick.
got in the booth, I still have the record, you know, like we're little
Damn.
kids singing the hook or whatever. And my pops was militant as hell. So like I could tell he was disappointed the vocal wasn't as good as he wanted it to be. That's the kind of guy he is. So I was like, all right, like fuck that. I'm gonna get good at this. You know, like it was fun. And then on top of that, like that little edge of like, oh, you guys could have done a little bit better. Not that we were kids, you know, but he was trying to hide that he wasn't like stoked about it. But he was giving us encouragement at the same time. I could tell. I was like, damn, he wanted it to be better.
But that's dope that he even like had that idea to take you guys and then also kind of be serious about it. Like, hey, if you were serious about this, you want to be creative, you want to be a musician, this is how you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was very like, when I did tell him, oh, I'm gonna start kind of pursuing music, he was real stern about like the pitfalls of like the music business, because he had a rough go to that point. And he's like, it's hard. It's really hard. So like here, you know, here's what you got to look out for. And also you got to be weary and make sure you really want to do it, because it's no walk in the park. Yeah. So he kind of gave me that. It wasn't like I had two different parents. I had one parent who did that. And then I had one parent, my mom would be like, go for it. You can live your dreams, son. You know, like real encouraging and shit. So it was cool. It was a cool balance, because like I'd go kick it with him and get the real stern approach. Yeah. And then I'd go home and like the rest of the year I'd have my mom being like, like, you know, cheerleading.
It's a good balance. And I'm sure like throughout your progression of your career, he kind of kept you grounded. Like,
no, definitely.
He
like
made sure you didn't.
He would definitely, it was weird. Like in the beginning there was like, like he didn't want to push me too hard into it. I don't think he wanted to push us into it at all. He was like, if you want to do it, cool. And then he also just didn't want us to like go down the avenue and find the wrong things or, you know, struggle, basically. They didn't want us to struggle. And many artists who choose that path, they struggle. It's just it's the nature of the beast, you know?
And how did you decide, like, because obviously starting off, you were into battle rapping.
I got into battle rapping later, yeah.
But is that something you were cognitive of to like, okay, I want to like kind of test my skills, or just kind of?
No, I had already decided like I was going to start rapping and like writing down raps freshman year of high school. So like during middle school, I was kind of messing around, like penning lyrics, but I hadn't really gotten into hip hop too much. 9th grade, I was super into hip hop by this point. Like, you know, 7th, 8th into 9th was like, okay, we're there for real. And I read in the Source magazine that Prodigy from Mobb Deep kept a composition book. Remember the black and white composition books? So he kept a composition book with all his rhymes. And I was like, damn, that's dope. I want to do that. I'm going to do that. So I got a composition book and I started actually writing verses freshman year high school, and then pushing, just started collecting, trying to write songs and stuff. And I got a flyer for a B-Boy Jam in Miami. And it was like, oh, this is cool. Like there's a MC battle, producer battle. I didn't really fully know what it all was, but I was like, this is a cool like scene. There's like some sort of community here for musicians. Whereas like in Hollywood, there was nothing at the time. So I was like, all right, so I'm gonna go down. So I went down for my first jam down here. Probably Polish American Club was my first one, which is no longer there, rest in peace. But I went there and I was trying to network, you know, as a young up and comer. And all the artists that were there, all the kids basically that were there, knew each other. They all went to school. They all kicked it with each other. They had groups already. They were pressing their own vinyls. They were light years ahead of us. So I was like, all right, cool, let me get in. So I was trying to be cool, befriend people. And the energy was a little bit like, you know, we got our clicks and you're an outsider. We don't know who you are. And then the MC battle came on. And when the MC battle came on, I saw everyone's, you know, focus shift there, and it became a big deal. And whoever was killing it was the guy. So then I was like, oh, okay, you know what? Like, I know this is how I cracked the social, like, you know, sphere. I got to get up there and I got to kill shit. So I was like, all right, cool. And I got up there. My first battle was against Parable, actually. And it was his first battle too. And he had a choke moment. So he didn't kick his verse. He kind of I kind of won by default. Right. Then I battled Logix, who was in So What at the time and ended up being Artificial later. And he beat me. And then I got off the stage and I was like, yo, I'm coming back. I'll be back. You know, like I fell in love with it, because it was, the music part of it was definitely great, but also I'm just a super passive person, never been a fighter, never been confrontational. So it was a cool pass to get that angst out and be able to say crazy shit to somebody without fear of like physical repercussion, you know? Because that wasn't me. I was definitely not that guy.
And how do you prepare for something like that, especially at that age and like being kind of new to hip hop?
I don't even really remember. I guess like we were already starting to freestyle out. We were starting to cypher. But like battling, it was kind of just brand new to me, which is like, I must have seen videos online or something because I did have some sort of recognition of what was going on. But this is like pre 8 Mile, we didn't have any reference. Like they had some stuff on the web starting to pop up, but I think really going to those jams in the beginning, I must have at least gone to a jam or two and been a spectator first. Because when I got up there, I kind of knew what to do already, you know, and knew how to freestyle. And then it was all freestyle back then. Yeah. So really, it wasn't prep other than like just make sure you can go off the top and go quick.
It was that thespian in you. Improv.
You know, like improv. Yeah. No, for real, actually, I never really said that. But yeah, that would be a good, because we used to improv all those years in middle school. We would go and do improv the way they do it on like Whose Line Is It Anyway? Yeah. We were doing that in middle school. So and not only improv, but being funny.
Yeah.
Like, because I always want to get a laugh at everybody. So cool. We get out there. So that was like the way in was like improv and then be funny. Yeah. Because there was a lot of styles of battlers back then, but the ones that I would notice that didn't do the best were the dudes that went in hella angry.
Yeah.
Because the crowd don't really want to. They're like,
yeah, it gets weird.
Yeah, what is this? Like, nah. Like, so when you go up there and be the waka waka guy and tell some jokes and be lighthearted about it, that was the avenue. And then I also just went in and like banked off of being the guy that no one thought would be dope.
Yeah, that's crazy because it's like the acting interests. Your uncle was on the Benny Hill show. Like all these little grandfather, all these little things that like kind of were already inside of you, and then you were able to like, all right, I'm gonna try this battle rap thing.
Yeah, it was those things. Although I wasn't cognizant of it then, and really until you said the improv thing right now, didn't really think about that either. But yeah, they were totally like stepping stones to get to that zone.
For sure. Mm-hmm. So how did you end up on MTV? Because obviously everyone, I think, got introduced to the name Wrekonize on maybe more of a national level when you ended up on the battle on MTV.
Yeah, I was 19. I was like about to turn 20.
You just got out of high school.
Just out of high school, yeah. And had already like cut my teeth on the battle scene in Miami. Like by that point in Miami, when I got like, if I signed up to something, I wasn't even allowed to sign up to many battles at that point. It was like I was like crazed at DJ battles. They were like, chill. You're beyond the battle, you know.
You're the judge.
Yeah. Or if I did get allowed into a battle, it was one of those when I stepped on stage or they called my name, there would be like a collective groan from the other like competitors, like, shit, you know, like here we go. So it was cool. Like I had a good like reputation in Miami. I had been to Scribble Jam twice in Cincinnati, which is like big national battle. I never won there, but the year before that, I went to Scribble. I didn't get signed up in the beginning, so I had to. They had like a prelim battle that basically like they're like, we have 2 slots left, and everyone's gonna battle the 20 extra people that are on the list, and then the last 2 will get into the main bracket. So I went to Cincinnati that year before, and I battled my way all the way to the final prelim bracket, and it was me and this dude Swan from Detroit were the last ones. But we didn't battle because it was only those last 2 slots that go to the main bracket. So we went to the main bracket. I ended up losing to Juice. So it was one of my biggest battles to that date. What happened was like the beat, it was like Wu-Tang or Jizza beat that has like a drop in it. And the drop is hella long if you listen to the song. And I didn't really think about it, so I got lost and I fucked up. And I had a good momentum going, but when Juice caught that slip, he turned it on. He killed me. So I lost, and so I went home from that battle feeling like, that was my shot. You know, like, I really wanted that. And I got a homegirl that called me up and said, hey, they're doing a contest, 103.5. The Beat announced it on the radio that they're doing like some sort of MC battle with MTV. She's like, so I'm like, all right, dope. So I checked it out, got the info, went to like an open audition that they had. There's like 300 people standing outside of...
in Miami?
In Miami. I forget the name of the studio now. It wasn't Mix Masters. It was like something like that. And it was a studio down in this area. And there was 300 people out there, 3/4 of which didn't even rap.
They just want to be on TV.
They just wanted it. Like, just knew it was a contest. They thought it was a talent show.
Right.
It was like rappers and jugglers and reggae artists and like all kinds of stuff. So I was like, okay, this is going to be easy to a degree because I could see a lot of people weren't really about what it was about. So they made you go in there, kick a 16. I went in there, recorded my 16. I got a call saying, yo, you made it to the final 16 competitors. And then they had a final battle at Circle House. Went to Circle House and I battled my way down to the final. And it was me and Louis Knuckles, who was in First Platoon back in the day. So I was a fan. So I was already like, oh shit, I got to battle this dude. I got his record, you know, like
Circle House is legendary.
Circle House already, like a legendary studio. It was my first time there. So I battled him and I ended up winning the slot. And then they sent me as one of 8 competitors to rep for Miami. And then, that was like my first like burst onto the national scene. Which
my bad.
No. I didn't realize how big it was going to be. I knew it was going to be a thing, but I didn't really realize ahead of time how massive it was going to be.
Yeah, because I was going to say also, like at the time, was it TRL on TRL or was it?
No, it was
separate, right?
It was a Saturday afternoon event that was totally separate from TRL. And then when I won, they invited me on TRL that Monday, which was crazy too. Yeah. To go on TRL at that time was wild.
At the time, MTV wasn't like that into hip hop like that. It was like more of the pop and the TRL wasn't at the forefront.
Oh yeah. No, definitely. That's why like I was a super underground hip hop head. So when they said go on TRL, I was like,
that's huge.
It's
time,
like the exposure, couldn't turn it down. That's when I first realized, like for me at least, some of the underground like rhetoric that I was kicking, like when faced with an opportunity, that shit's out the door. Yeah. Like like you're gonna tell me I can get on and promote myself. Like, all right, I'll do it. You know, like I'll do it. I thought I would have been like, I don't know, TRL kind of stood for everything we stood against at that time. Right. You know, so it was felt like it was almost like getting in bed with the enemy to a degree, you know? But MTV took really good care of us. And they had done one MC battle beforehand. So they had done one already. And they learned a lot from that first one they did. They knew how to run it. It run real smooth. They had Rockefeller come in and sponsor it and be the judges. And Just Blaze was DJing. And they had DJ Clue hosting. Like, it was done really well. And it was actually a blessing that they did it the way they did it, because the first battle they did, they just did it in New York. They didn't do it national. Right. They just did, come to Times Square. And it was the first time they ever did it. It happened the way it happened. It all went down. When they went to do it again, imagine, they'd already aired one. So when it came time to do the second one, when they said, we're going to do another one of these, the what do you call it? The turnout was quadruple what it was before. It was so much that they had to shut it down. So then they shut it down and said, let's just, siphon it out to all the radio stations and have them select the 8 competitors. So that like overflow of people and them shutting it down is what ended up making it so that I could do it from Miami, you know?
So then you ended up winning. Did you feel like pressure after that of like, okay, like now I'm like known here for winning this battle. Like now my career starts like.
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely like high pressure. Like the next day in New York, I was walking around the street and people were like, yo, Wrekonize. And I was like, oh, it was the first time I'd ever gotten that. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is crazy. Like
I remember seeing you on MTV like that Monday TRL. I'm like, yo, this guy's from Miami. What the fuck is happening?
It was definitely like a high pressure. Like now we felt like at 19 or 20, I'm like, this is it. This is it for me. It's my shot, you know? And then what ended up happening was it was a single deal. A lot of people think I was supposed to get like a full-on album record deal, but it was supposed to be just for a single. The single, Rockefeller like basically never contacted me again after the battle. So a lot of people, the rumor was, the myth was that like I turned it down. I didn't turn it down.
Yeah.
They basically never came and contacted me after. The last I saw of them, Dame Dash and all these guys, was the last that people saw me with them on TV.
But they were there, present.
No, they were there. Yeah, Dame was there. Like, gave me the jacket. You know, we were all together on camera at the end. That part was cool. But then at the end, like, they all kind of bounced. MTV was like, okay, the cash prize money is through MTV. We're gonna make sure we facilitate all that. You know, boom. I hung out in New York for a day or two, and then they like, we want you to do TRL. My manager at the time was like, look, if Rockefeller doesn't reach out or go, come to be with you on TRL or say anything, just announce that we're going to go back to Miami and work on a project and, shop a deal or whatever. So I was like, all right, cool. They didn't show. We went to TRL. I did just that. I'm going to go back to Miami. I'm going to work on a project. I'm going to get my stuff in order and whatever. So then we went back to Miami and did just that. So it did feel like it was this is a moment, but then like I took it real well considering that Rockefeller fizzled out, like I was like, it's cool. I just kind of like rationalized it as like, they don't know what to do with me. I barely knew what to do with me at that time. Yeah. So I was like, cool, I'm just going to go back home and figure it out.
Now you kind of had like a little validation of like, okay, like I'm really doing this, but now let me get to work essentially.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, let's not spoil the opportunity. Like, boom, let's go drop a mixtape. Let's drop a project. Let's record an album. I went back to Miami. I ended up getting a record deal with an indie label that was just like starting up. I was the first artist signed. So it was like all that momentum, like, I got some money from that deal. So I had money from the MTV thing. So I was like furnishing like the one thing I promised myself was like, yo, I know I'm young, I'm dumb, like I don't really know how to invest. I should have probably like bought a property or some shit. But I was like, the one thing I know I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set myself up with equipment so that no matter what, even if I end up blowing all this money, that I'll be able to record and make music and do what I want to do. So I did that. I bought turntables, a computer, a Pro Tools setup, the whole thing. And like some of that gear I still have to this day.
You invested in yourself.
Yeah. It was like at least I'm gonna do that. Yeah. So if it all goes wrong, my mom was like, "Oh, you should do this and invest," and I was like, whatever. I didn't really listen to her, but I did get the gear, which was important.
It's dope. So like, you won that battle, and you were just saying, I love that you brought that up. Like, if you see an opportunity, if it makes sense, like obviously you're not gonna like sell your soul for something that doesn't align with you. Mm-hmm. But how do you kind of like, because I always find that interesting of like the underground artists until they're not underground, but then do they feel like they want to still be underground, or are they striving for the commercial success? But then the commercial success brings like I'm not really staying true to my roots, but then you don't want to stay underground, but maybe you do. And it's like.
Yeah. I think it's like a conundrum for most artists, especially if you start in the underground. But when I went through it and then looking back on it, I started to think in my head, I feel like fuck the commercial shit or fuck the industry shit is like, it's cool to say when you're like, when you're off the reservation, so to speak. But then like, if you get the chance to put yourself on a bigger platform, you wouldn't take it? Why not? Yeah. And then as I was getting older and maturing, I started to realize like, I think a lot of that like is bullshit, really. The underground talk, I think it's you can say it because the opportunity isn't there. But then when you really get the opportunity to make that jump, that's when you really figure out who you really are, what your, alliances are. And if you can, my whole thing at the time was like, if I can get this platform and get onto a bigger, record label or just get my music heard by more people, but I don't change what I'm doing, then it's cool. I'll go on TRL. I'm not going to dance on TRL. You know what I'm saying? But I'll go on there and just do what I do. Hey, I rap, I'm an MC, boom, boom, boom. Listen to my music, cool. And that was a way to like use the megaphone without like changing my tune. It was like, I'm going to still do the same thing. So I think like a lot of people end up having to make that choice. It's only when you get down there and then you realize, oh, wait, I just changed everything I do. Yeah. And none of this feels right to me, that you get into like murky water.
Yeah. No, and it's not like selling out. It's just being who you are. Like you could, like you said, be who you are on TRL or be who you are in a commercial environment or whatever it is. But it's your perception. It's not like you're selling yourself out to be something that you're not. Yeah, I think a lot of people, like you, to your point, like use that as like kind of a cop out, almost like, nah, I'm gonna stay underground. It's like, well,
like, all right,
you gonna stay underground,
like,
or
all right, cool. Like, I don't want that many people to hear me. It's like, all right, then, like, cool. Yeah, it's like, I don't. You make small calibrations along the way as you get older as well. You're gonna change, so like you're gonna make changes. We made a change when we signed to Strange Music down the road. Our sound was a little bit different, and then we got on a Midwest gangster rap label. So like we're going and playing in front of, not to jump ahead in the timeline so far, but that's just a good example to me. Like we ended up calibrating Mayday a little bit more, like to fit the vibe more. Yeah. So we, and we still were true to ourselves. We still enjoy what we were doing, but we definitely like made a calibration, made an adjustment, and you can make those adjustments. Yeah. You don't have to stay the same forever.
Nah, for sure. I think that's like super important. Like kind of recalibrating. Like to adjust to either the times or you as a person, because you're not the same person you were 10 years ago. So it's kind of hard to be doing the same things. Yeah. It's crazy because when I first heard Mayday, it was at Vagabond, the back room, which my now wife took me because I was like on the beach doing the nightclub, bottles, all this. Mm-hmm. So I never really ventured off to these, like, what's Vagabond? Like, let's drink 40s and like hang out. Yeah. I remember walking in that back room like, what's going on here, guys?
Yeah. It was a vibe.
And it was a vibe, dude. It was just like people genuinely having fun and jamming out, and you guys just fucking ripping it. There wasn't a stage. You just like right up on the front.
On the floor,
like,
right?
Yeah, on the floor. Like, I think it was just like wood. It might have not even been done, that room yet.
Yeah.
Like
in the beginning, there was only like a real small step of a stage. Yeah. And then I think we did definitely perform like at least on the floor there one time. But yeah, it was a cool, that whole era was real fun. Like, that record label that I signed to, they were on South Beach. They had an office on 7th and Washington, right in the middle of South Beach, like, before South Beach got whack as hell. So, I was at that time, like, working at the record label, like I was doing side hustles there to make money, recording and stuff, getting like cool with Mayday, then ended up joining Mayday. And we like bounce between jazzing on the beach, Vagabond, the stage, like to me, like really the golden era of like live underground music in Miami, because it's so depleted from what it was back then. Like not even for me playing, I just want to go to places. And now I'm like,
there was something every weekend.
Yeah. And it was like so many options and like great medium-sized venues here.
Yeah.
And now like we lack that as a city. Now it's rough. You're either playing like a really small bar or you're playing the Fillmore. You know, like there's no in between. We lost our Grand Central, we lost our stage, we lost our Vagabond, we lost White Room. Like all these places used to be a clutch, like, you know, a clutch selection of like nightlife and places to play.
And to meet like cool people doing cool shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to sound like old timer or whatever, but yeah, like it just it just was a great time. It was a great time in Miami, you know.
So you started collaborating with Mayday, like were you up to that point you were kind of used to like doing your own thing. So how was that now, like trying to collaborate with a band essentially?
It was cool. I was already fans of Burn and Plex before they started Mayday. They were in separate groups. So when I was talking about being in Hollywood and everyone in Miami already had their shit together, I was buying vinyl from the Miami artists like Serum. You know, Burns had a group called Evolver with our homie Uday. And then Plex was in a group called Algorithm. So like they had all these underground groups. They were pressing vinyls. I was a fan. So I came down from Hollywood and started going to jams. And then I went to an Evolver show where Burns was performing. And I was literally standing there next to Plex, who's 6'4". I'm like next to Plex in the audience. And I was like, the first thing I ever said to him was like, yo, that Proper Word remix that you did for Burns was dope. And he was like, oh, cool. You know, we said, what's up? We met. And then I met Burns after the show. And then they just started seeing me pop up everywhere because I was relentless. You know, I was like, I'm going to be at every show. I'm going to be at the battles. Like they kind of started to get like word of who I was from the battling. And then this is just before, a couple years before MTV. So by the time I went to do MTV, I'd already really become good friends with them. When I went up to MTV, I think I stayed an extra night more than MTV had me in a hotel. And I ended up like crashing on Plex's. Plex lived in Brooklyn at the time. So I went and stayed on Plex's floor. He played me some beats. I was trying to get beats from him for the first time. Like I was a super fan of Plex, obviously as a rapper, like looking for a producer. Like I was just like, this guy's amazing, you know? So I wanted to get involved with them. When I got signed to South Beat after the MTV thing, they were also signed shortly after me. So like they were signed as a 2-man group. I was signed as a solo artist. We rocked there for a few years while they were putting the first Mayday album together, and I was putting my album together. But what ended up happening with the label was they dropped the Mayday album, a Latin pop album, an R&B album, all on the same day. And they were not fully staffed for that, and they spent a lot of money, but it just didn't go the way they wanted it to go. So my album ended up getting shelved because of that. Damn. So my project that I worked on there never came out. So during that time, I was literally doing mixtapes, just trying to make noise, do whatever I could. I was really frustrated at the time because imagine I had like almost the Rockefeller deal fizzled. Then I come to South Beat, I work on a project. I'm dealing with like my inner struggle of like my management got frustrated with the label. They abandoned me basically. Like they were like, yo, we can't deal with them. And I'm like, well, I'm in a record deal. What do you want me to do? You know? So they ended up bailing. So I ended up being there by myself. So I'm by myself. I'm working with the head of the label. We're having creative differences. You know, they're trying to make a club record. I'm trying to not make a club record. And I was navigating all that stuff. So it was a frustrating time for me, but I was learning a lot. And meanwhile, Mayday, Burn and Plex were in the other studios. So I was jumping into their studio, listening to what they were making and thinking like, damn, they're doing what I want to do. Like this creative, off the cuff, like in the beginning it was samples, but then they got tired of trying to clear samples. So then Plex learned how to play guitar and keys, and they were doing original stuff that sounded like samples, boom bap, heavy ass drums. And I was like, yo, this is fire. Like, I love this stuff. So the whole first Mayday album, I was there in the wings, like, damn, I want to do this. You know, like I would love to be a part of this. Like I did scratches on the first Mayday album. They didn't have any other rappers other than Burns, but like that's how around I was. I was like, you need cuts? I got you. Like I'll do some scratches, you know? So I did scratches on one of the records. So like I was around. And then by the time that record label started to basically fizzle out, they were looking to expand the group. And they were like, we're going to add more instrumentalists, and we also want to add a vocalist. And I was so embedded in what was going on already. It was like a no-brainer. It was like not even a real big jump. It was just like, yeah, cool.
Let's make it official.
Let's make it official. Exactly. It was like,
so like that energy was probably like contagious, and you just like kind of grab. I mean, you guys were in the same rooms, but I mean, I'm sure it's crazy you guys were on that label and they put out a pop and an R&B.
Yeah. Yeah. They had Jay Shin from Slip and Slide, who signed to Slip and Slide before. They had this guy named Raito, who's amazing guitar, player, did a Latin pop album, and then they did the Mayday album. And they were trying to, you know, the guys had money. They're from the adult entertainment industry. They had money to blow. Like, they were killing the game, and they were into music, you know, and they loved music. So even though it didn't go well, I have no really like animosity or regrets about that time, because I call it like my college years.
Yeah.
Because basically, like, I got out of high school, I got that deal, and then like the next like basically like 5 to 6 to 7 almost years, I think I worked there in total 8 years. But I just was learning all the time. Even when I was working for the porn company, because I did a ton of jobs there. I never did porn or anything, but everyone always asked me that.
Oh, that's right. They were tied.
Yeah. It was called Reality Kings.
Yeah.
And they were a sister company with Bang Bros.
Yeah.
And basically, like, those two guys started them together, and then they had a difference in opinion on how to run the company, so they split. So then the guy who ran Reality Kings, he was super into music, and they started.
Kimbo.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we knew Kimbo. That's how we knew Kimbo through South Beach. So it was cool. Like, they had the studio, and then even when the record label folded, they kept the studio because they spent a lot of money on the studio. Studio was a great studio, and so then they turned it into a for-profit business, like basically just as the studio alone. So everyone was coming to record there because you had South Beach Records studios, or South Beach Studio just up the block. But if that was booked, you could come to South Beach. So they went to South Beach Studio, and then they would have everybody there. Beyonce, CeeLo was there, a bunch of artists popping in and out. So I was just like working upstairs, but like peeping what was going on. And then whenever the studios were open, I could just slip into the studio and do my thing.
So it was a good learning experience for sure.
The best learning experience. It was fire.
How do you prefer, do you like, well, I'm sure you like both, but like, how was it, I guess, collaborating with Mayday as a group of people versus you being creative as yourself? Because I think it's a whole different mode that you're in.
Totally.
So like, how do you kind of balance that, whether you're in a group or whether you're by yourself?
I told them in the beginning, Burn and Plex, I said, yo, like, I'm down to join. I'm super all in. But just so you know, like, I've been a solo artist. And imagine, I had been trying to drop a solo album all that time and never gotten one out. And I had one almost finished. And I said, look, before we drop this project we're going to do, like, I need to get this out. Otherwise, I feel like I'll never get it out. And they were cool about that. And I put my first official solo album out a month before we put out the first full-length Mayday album that I did with them. So I put that out. And then I also told them, look, I'm always just going to want to do solo stuff. And to their credit, they were always cool about it. They were like, look, let's just schedule it, make sure it doesn't step on any toes, vice versa. And they were always really cool. There was never really any animosity about it. So to their credit, they made it really easy. What I like about working in a group is what you create there, you can't, you obviously can't do on your own. Like, it's the collective effort of all the people in the room, and somebody might suggest something you wouldn't have thought of, and then the whole thing takes a turn into a whole new zone, So like, collaborating is just like a fun give and take, you throw in your, it's just like a different challenge than working on your own. What I like about working on my own is, for better and for worse, whatever comes out of that, I know is me, period. You know what I mean? Like, it could be not the greatest song. It could be the greatest song. And I know, like, yo, I did that. Period. Like, no one helped me with that. So I also just like not having to think. If you work in a group, you have to explain what you're doing. And that goes for any medium. Yeah. Like, if you're in a room full of people, you have to be like, well, I got to do this with this water bottle because, and you have to explain the abstract sometimes. And sometimes great ideas don't lend themselves to being explained well. So like, sometimes if you're on your own just doing an idea, you don't have to deal with that explanation. You just do it. You just create the art, and the explanation is not necessary.
100%.
You know what I mean? So I find that, what I liked about doing solo work and group work is that doing that best of both worlds made me more pliable and like willing to go with the flow when you join the group. Yeah. Because you're like, I just did something at home. I'm cool. All right. If my idea doesn't fly in the Mayday circle, like, it's all good. Because I already got that out earlier, Yeah.
No, sometimes you're like so locked in that it's good to like get outside of that, to like, all right, let me bounce some ideas and maybe help someone else, and they take my idea and they go with it. Versus like, just like you can get in like in a vacuum of your own shit that you're working on, and you just either think it's super dope or you think it's super whack, and you're just like, oh, fuck this. Like,
a good example of that is when I joined Mayday. Like, I had when I first started doing music, I started trying to sing because my parents both sung. So around that time, I started getting into hip hop. At that time, hip hop, it was not cool to sing. It was the polar opposite of that. We've come a long way. Back then, if you put R&B vocals or you even tried to sing some melodic shit, they laughed you out the room. So I stopped singing and I was like, yo, I'm gonna just rap, like that's it. I'm gonna be a rapper. So I stopped singing. When I got into Mayday, Burns and Plex were real. Like they heard some of the stuff I had cut that had some melody in it, and they're like, yo, you should push more on that. You should do more singing. I hadn't even done any singing like live. That was terrifying to me at the time. I'd only ever rapped on a live show. And they're like, yo, you should, do more of that. And they encouraged me. So that group dynamic got me to start being like, yo, all right, let me try singing more. And we used to go and do 2-hour improv jam sessions at Jazzed. And then they're like, yo, come, let's do some of that there. And then we just experiment there and I'd be able to sing and like play with melody. And that, I might not have gotten there then or at all without the push of being in the group dynamic and having them encourage that.
Yeah. No,
took the group for that.
For sure. And I think sometimes like you either, like you said, you hadn't sung in a while or sang in a while. So you probably were like, I don't know, is that good? Or the opposite where it's like you only do one thing. So you're like, nah, this is what I'm good at. Like, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But then it takes like an outside perspective to be like, bro, that's actually dope. Like you said, lean into that.
Absolutely.
So it's like, yeah, I think that's something that I learned coming here. Like I was always very to myself. And then I'm like, but I need like that collaboration is like what takes it to the next level, even for yourself. Like you take it back with you and then
Totally. Like you can always be learning and then it humbles you because sometimes like in Mayday, even in the early days of Mayday especially, there'd be an idea that like I didn't really think was the greatest or I didn't vibe with, but it was a group I was entering in that was already established. So I felt a little bit more inclined to just go with the flow. And I would go with the flow. And then at the end of the day, the result was dope. And I liked it. And I was like, damn, I wouldn't have done that. And then we got to this place that I do think is dope. Yeah. And if I would have been left to my own devices, I would have never got here. Yeah. So once you learn that a few times, it kind of, then you get that ebb and flow of like when to fight for an idea or when to just kind of go with it and go with somebody else's vibe and see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I think ideas are like a crazy thing. Like we talk about it like so abstract, but it's like it could take you somewhere or not take you somewhere. And like, that's the inception of something that becomes something else. So like for you, like what is like your perfect, I guess, environment for creating or like ideas?
Oh man. It used to be like,
or is there?
There isn't really at this point. Like, yeah, like some people get real like methodical about it. I gotta have my smoke. I gotta have this room. And gotta be quiet. Like I've written on tour. I've written at home, in the car, in the van. When I have kids now. My kids were born 7 years ago. I had twin boys. When my twins were born, I was writing any fucking time and place that I could get it out, you know? They were 2 years old and I did a 52-week freestyle run, one freestyle every week. So I was doing like minimum 40 to like 60 bars of freestyle and I was doing one every week. So imagine like I was finding any waking moment that I could in any place. And it was like, there wasn't really like, back in the day, I used to like a certain thing. I like to write late. I always like the middle of the night. Obviously, you get older, you have kids, that shit becomes way less appealing. So like now I don't be doing that much anymore. But I used to be like a night writer. That was really my main thing. And I was never a big smoker. I got into drink a little bit, but I never really felt like it helped me write better. So I never really looked for it. I mean, it's fun, cool. I'm happy to have it there, especially back in the day. But I never got like reliant upon it. And I did see some of my homies and just people that I've worked with over the years that do have very specific. And I feel for them because I get it. Like inspiration is weird like that. Sometimes you got to feed the beast. But I always thought it must be such a struggle to have that because whatever that thing is that you're looking for, what happens when you can't get it? Then what? You just don't create that day? Like your creation isn't as good because you have that crutch. Then I started to see it as like a hindrance. So I always tried to steer clear of like getting too reliant on the vibe. You know, like it's a real thing, and I don't knock anyone who does it, but. I think also being in the game for so long now, like, and having so many different like variations that we had to like navigate, it made it so that like, yo, you just have to figure it out. You just have to get to it.
It's got to show up. I forgot what the quote is, but it's like, you could prepare the perfect vibe, but if like, and create great things, but if you're not able to prepare the perfect vibe, then you got to just show up and hope something happens.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes
just showing up is all you can do. And then sometimes you got to accept defeat as well without like beating yourself up too much. You know, like sometimes we go to the studio to this day and we'll sit in the room, Burns and I'll be trying to write something and nothing comes. And I'm like, hey, it just ain't today. Yeah. You know, like, and it's just cool tomorrow, you know, just try it again. And we just reload and do it again. But it's just the being there is the part.
Yeah,
like
exactly. And that's something I wanted to ask you. Like, do you ever kind of either maybe it's purposely or like you just said, but do you make time to like just go to the studio and like, all right, we're just gonna like fuck around, like not fuck off, but you know, you're gonna like kick back and forth ideas, write some melodies, maybe like just play some beats, not with no intention of like we have to make a record today.
Yeah.
Like more just like ideating.
We're in a weird space now because we're like more separated than we've been in like the whole history of the group. Just because, you know, we got off our record label 2 years ago, so we started our own thing. The way that the economy is, like the way the music business is, it's harder to like glue things together than it's ever been. So we're all doing multiple things, you know, and you know, most of the group has kids as well. So kids also complicate the situation. So but before this little era we're in right this moment, we would just go every day. Just treat the studio like 9 to 5 and just be there. Like you said, like the showing up part. So we would just go and just clock in every day and just be there. And yeah, some days we just make a beat. Some days we just like, oh, let's just grab someone else's beat, do a freestyle. Some days, let's write a hook only. Sometimes we just finish a whole song or, you know, whatever. So it would definitely, we would never really go in with like, in the beginning anyways, like set things. We just knew we were meeting up, whether it was rehearsal, studio stuff, beat making, whatever. We're just going to be there from that time to that time every day, Monday through Friday. We'll take the weekends off, kick it with our girls or whatever. But Monday through Friday, we're in there doing it. You know, and that was it. So then we'd meet people who ask us about output and be like, well, we're there every day. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it. Like, and I think I went full-time music in 2012. Even after we signed to Strange Music, I didn't quit my job. I kept my job for like another year after that. And we went on our first tour with Tech Nine. It was like a month and a half, and my boss was real cool. He let me go. And I was working at the porn company still. So it was a cool job. It wasn't like, you know, the most corporate job ever. But he was like, yeah, all right, cool. Just come back and get with us when you get back. All right, cool. So I did that. Then the following year, when we dropped our first album on Strange Music, we went on a record-breaking consecutive hip-hop tour with Tech Nine, Machine Gun Kelly. It's like 3 or 4 other artists opening up. And it was 94 shows in 104 days. And it was insane. And I told my boss at the time, hey, look, I'm going to be going on this thing. It's 3 months long. And he was like, yo, I can't let you go and come back. I got to let you go. And I was like, all right, cool. And that was when I made the jump, you know? So I went full-time music in 2012. So what we're, 13 years ago. And basically like since then just been like fully into it. But I knew before that time what it was like to have another job too. Yeah. So I knew what it was like to like get out and be like, this is the only time I have to create because I had to be here from this time to this time. So it was something I didn't forget and always kept like, okay, always utilize this time to create because I remember when I didn't have time to create. Yeah. I had that other thing, you know? So it's been like keeping sight of that I think is important because sometimes people just get complacent or they go full-time creation and then they just get lazy in a way, you know? And like, fuck that. Just treat it the same way you treated that other job you didn't want to be at. Now you at the one you want to be at. Yeah. Treat that shit like the same. You gotta be even more disciplined. Hell yeah. You have so much freedom. Yeah, like exactly. You gotta go the other way. Now lock yourself down a little bit more. Set a schedule for yourself. Go in every day. Even when you don't have something like to do, so to speak. Go in there and be there for those hours, you know? So we in Mayday, everybody always had that mindset. Like it wasn't hard to get everyone in Mayday at that time to work.
So, and how do you navigate that, like, as a business? Like, because, I mean, that's something I think we've all kind of struggled with, especially early on, where it's like, yeah, I just want to do this. Yeah, I'm going to show up and do this, and I got to work on this, and I want to make this, and I want to do that. But then, like, all right, how do I make money? Because I can't then, how do I fund the things I want to do?
Yeah, yeah. It's a struggle to this day. Yeah. It's like we've over the course of the years we've been in the game, like, we've seen some real highs, we've seen some real lows, and we've seen some in-betweens. And now, like, we're still kind of struggling with that because the music business is in a weird place, you know? Like, imagine when we first signed to Strange, we were putting CDs in Best Buy. That's how long ago that was. So, like, and it's not even that long ago if you really chalk it up, but it's eons ago in the music business. Because now the thought of putting a CD in a store sounds archaic. Like, you know, luckily you could still sell CDs and sell vinyl and stuff, and you can go direct to consumer, and that's become like a popular thing, and most people do that now. But we had a real good like hustle mind state in the beginning. We were super on top of it, And we had Mayday had a manager, this girl Andrea, who was managing Mayday before I got in the group. And then when I got in the group shortly after, we expanded the management. We brought in a guy who was A&Ring my album on South Beat, and then we brought in DJ EFN. So EFN, Drea, and this guy Kether were like our trifecta management. And they were also really good at like getting us opportunities. And it was just kind of like we were learning the business as we went. So like the making money part was a struggle in the beginning, you know, like we were just there trying to do what we could do, eating ramen noodles or whatever, and just being there for the moment and trying to make money. When we got signed to Strange, and I got lucky also, you know, because the MTV thing, like I got some capital there. When I got my record deal at South Beat, I got an advance, a non-recoupable advance as well. So like I got a bonus advance. So I had some money that I had coasted off of for those years. So I knew like kind of what it felt like to have a little bit of bread and have some money to do some shit. So like I knew I wanted to get back to that place once I had depleted all that. So I knew like where I wanted to go. So yeah, we were just kind of, we were just on the grind, just a lot of work and like not doing anything too stupid until we were able to get some money. When we got on tour with Strange, our first 2 tours with Strange were buy-on tours. They came out of our budget. So to get on tour with Tech Nine, we had to pay. Basically, you know, indirectly because it was coming out of our budget. It wasn't coming literally out of my pocket, but it was money that I had to pay back. So those first 2 tours were cool. It was like summer camp because we're on tour buses for the first time. Tech Nine has huge crowds compared to what we were packing in at the time. And everything was taken care of. They had a super well-oiled machine. It was just very fun, you know, like a lot of fun because you didn't have to worry about anything. Money was okay. The money we were getting paid as a stipend was cool, but it wasn't crazy. But when we went on our 3rd tour with Strange is when we had gotten enough audience to finally start to get paid. But before we got to that point, we lost some members because of that same thing, the money. We'd done a bunch of shows. Imagine we did 65 on our first tour, 94 on the second tour. And the second tour, a lot of work. And we were in front of Tech Nine crowds on the first tour. On the second tour, we were in front of Tech Nine and Machine Gun Kelly crowds. And Machine Gun Kelly was like popping off. Like that was the beginning of his pop off. He signed a Bad Boy. He had Wild Boy out. There was a bunch of people coming out to see him. So we were in front of those crowds. And if you're not careful, it warps your mind because then you start to be like, I could do this, you know, before you really know that you have that crowd. This isn't your crowd. So when we got off, we lost, Plex left the group. And then we ended up having to bench our drummer because we were like, well, we're going to go to the track. We won't keep the live drummer. We can't really afford it. So we ended up having to bench our drummer. Plex left and we went down to a 4-man group. And it was because of, like you said, it was like trying to figure out that money thing. Plex already had kids, you know. He was like, yo, I got to go get my hustle on. I can't really do it like this anymore. And I'm like, all right. So it was hard. It was a hard thing for us to accept at that time, especially me. Like I took it kind of personal at the beginning, you know. And then I had kids and I totally got it. You know, I was like, oh, this shit's hard. Like, damn, no wonder. I like definitely had to go back and do my penance, you know, because I judged the situation from a perspective that I didn't know. You know, like, and when I had kids, I realized like why the members that left before left. Yeah,
of course. Kids put everything into perspective, like immediately.
Totally. Like money in general, just to take care of them, and then also just to be around them.
Yeah.
You know, like
and time.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like I was lucky to have my kids later. So by the time I had my kids at 35, I'm 41 now. So like my kids were young when we were still pretty in the thick of it with Strange, but like the last, 4 or 5 years has been like our decline and basically like getting off on the off ramp of Strange music. So our touring has decreased quite a bit. So it's made it easier, but we were still touring heavy up until last year. Last year was like the hardest one I've ever done because my kids are 6 at this time. They're 7 now. They're 6. And literally I was seeing them, their behavior was reflective of my absence. And it was fucking me up.
Yeah.
It was rough. I had one twin being angry at me because he didn't know how to show that he missed me. And then I had one twin like just emotional breakdowns.
Yeah.
I can't take it. I can't handle it. Where are you? You know?
Yeah.
It was fucked up. It was rough. It was rough, man. It was like, so now it's like we're trying to juggle. It kind of happened at the right time because the industry is weird right now for live music.
So when you say weird, what do you mean? Strange.
Like basically everything, the cost of going on the road now has all skyrocketed. Hotels, gasoline, venue rental fees, what they take at the merch table now. They all got cuts on the merch table. Like everything has exponentially gone up in cost. but what we're making has not changed.
Right.
So that became hard to justify. Like,
yeah,
it was like,
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, like what are we doing? Like you have to get to a point as a live act where you have to hop that hurdle and get to a next size audience that makes it okay for all those price increases. And we were having trouble doing that. So like when we couldn't, we couldn't hop that hurdle, then it was starting to be like, yo, we got to be real selective about touring, which ended up working out okay. Cause I'm at a point in my life with the kids where I'm like, I don't really want to be away from them as much, So it's been something we've been trying to navigate we did 2 months straight last year and it was rugged. We did a month in the US and a month in Canada back to back.
Damn.
And that was like, we came back from that one, we were like, yo, next year, let's chill. So this is the chill year. We're going to do some spot dates and stuff, but no like full tour this year.
No, when you're older, that tour life is taxing, bro.
Yeah,
it's hard to keep up.
Even age excluded, like tour life is just not for everybody.
Yeah.
Like I learned that. I watched so many people crash and burn over the years, over the last decade plus.
I had like one experience. I toured DJ with lunch money once, but quick,
lunch.
5 days, And after those 5 days, I'm like, how do people do this for 30, 60, 90 days?
It's insane. It's a different kind of life. You got to forego a lot of comforts that you're used to. And then,
but then you get used to foregoing it. So then like when you get back, you're like, wait.
That's the thing. When you go out on tour, you have to get used to a certain type of life. And then when you come back, that change from tour life to regular life is jarring.
Yeah.
So like all the homies I've ever gone out with that it's their first tour, I'm always like, oh, just give it 2 weeks. When you get home, you're going to be like, damn, I want to go back out on tour.
Yeah.
Because it's different, especially when you're on a big tour with your all access pass. Like those first few Tech 9 tours we went on, like I got so attached to the pass and the freedom that pass allowed me that I would start to feel like I could do whatever I want when I went to like Publix. You know what I'm saying? Like I could just walk back here. I'm all access, bro. What do you mean? Like it was just like you
got
get
back and you're like, you know who the fuck?
Yeah, you almost feel like boundaries don't exist on the road because you're in a venue every night that you can go wherever the fuck you want, and not everybody can.
Yeah.
So that it's a weird psychology that happens there. So we started to get our audiences built up in a lot of other markets. Miami, not the strongest market for us. Only our people we came up with and people who used to party with us at Transit Lounge and like know us from the scene knew us. But Miami's not a demographic that's strong for our type of music. So Miami also became like a quiet place comparatively.
Right.
I go to New Mexico right now. I get stopped at the gas station. Go to Miami. I go ages without somebody saying anything about my music unless it's somebody like from the scene. You know? So it's a weird. Like your psychology has to shift so many times going on the road, off the road, on the road, off the road. But I got really used to it. I'm like pliable with that kind of stuff. I didn't mind it too much. It's really only when the kids started to become an issue that now I'm like, I don't know how much longer I want to do it like this. Like also, I love performing, live performing. Like get me on the stage. The minute I start performing, it's one of the greatest things ever. Everything before and after that is kind of I could do without. Like all the logistics of getting on tour, your safety being in the vulnerability feeling of being on the road, whether it's like police or just like dangerous situations in cities you're not familiar with, like all those things start to pile up on you after a while, But if I could just snap my fingers and be on stage, I'll perform till I'm 98 years old,
You think there's like kind of on the other side of things in the music industry, like a shift of kind of more the whole internet route, or not route, but like there's other opportunities. Like I know you do Patreon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like there's kind of a community now that you can build of your fan base. That's like a loyal fan base, but like you said, direct to consumer.
Yeah.
Where you put shit out, whether it's music or a product, they're going to rock with you.
Yeah, you can build an audience now on the internet like you used to have to build up in a real space.
Yeah.
And then the funky part that's still like there's no crossover or very little crossover sometimes is people will get super popping online and be like blow up on social media. And then they'll be like, oh, I'm going to do a tour. Yeah. And then they go to do a tour and they don't sell fucking tickets.
Right.
And it's like, oh, that's because those people, they fuck with you on YouTube or Instagram or Twitch or whatever. But then like they're not buying a ticket for the show. They're not those kind of people. Or you didn't get the message out to them or whatever it is. So it's like, it's cool in one sense where it's like that avenue of building an audience now on a Patreon, on a Twitch exists. And it makes it so you don't have to go out there. And you could do it for way less money now, which I think is amazing. So like, I've always been into like, because we came up in the way we did, I've always been up on like alternative ways to make it work, whether it's like for financial or just for outreach.
Yeah.
I'm always like, yo, where are the people at?
Yeah.
I talk to artists now and I'll be like, oh, I'm going to tag you for this thing we did. Like, what's your Twitter? And they're like, I don't do Twitter. And I'm like, why? There's people there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't get the selectiveness. And I have seen where it works for some people where like they'll blow up on one platform because they focus on it so much. And then like you'll look at them on another platform and their audience is relatively nothing. And so that taught me like, okay, like there is such a thing as zeroing in and focusing your efforts into one platform. But I think just for at least like announcing stuff, like you should just be everywhere. You know, like,
you never know when a platform will go away. And then you could have zeroed in for years and then...
I put a lot of time into Vine. Where's Vine now? My Vine's all gone. Stored in a folder somewhere.
I was cooking on Vine too,
you know, so it's like you never really know. So it's like you can't get too invested. Also, people make the mistake of thinking these platforms owe them something. They don't owe you shit.
It's free.
It's free. You are the product. You know what I mean? So they don't owe you anything. And it's frustrating, and I've been there. Like you garner an audience, you know, you get your 100,000 followers on Instagram, and then all of a sudden they flip a switch and you can't reach those people. Yeah. They're your people. They followed you, but now they want you to pay to reach them. It's like, it's frustrating, but at the end of the day, I realize like we can't get mad about that because this is a service we never paid for.
Yeah.
You know, like they were running the show. So it's like that for that reason, I always never wanted to get invested fully on one platform because then you're just giving them too much control. Like you got to kind of be everywhere. And then I just think like some of my fans only go on Twitter. Some of my fans only go on Patreon. Like, so it's like, just want to kind of be everywhere. And I'm not 100% sold on whether or not that's always the right thing to do. It's just, that's just,
I mean, but the fact that you're even on these platforms and you have like a direct connection to your fans. Like a lot of artists don't do that. They don't take the time to do that.
I do notice that like, I'm like a people person. I also remember like when I was younger reading that like Steve Jobs replied to his emails. Like people would just get random email replies from Steve Jobs, even after Steve Jobs was like Steve Jobs. And I always thought that was cool, not comparing myself to Steve Jobs, but just thinking like, yo, this man built this business. He was a multi-billionaire, whatever the fuck. And like, he could still talk to his customers, you know, and reply to people. He wasn't above that. And I always thought that was dope. Yeah. So like, yo, I want to be like that. I would like to be like that. So, and I just like people when they're good. Like I like, in general, in theory, I love people. So it's like, I just want to be cool with people. So it's like, if you message me and I see it and it's something I can relate to and reply to, I'm going to reply. So that's what made Patreon a really cool platform, because like building that community, it started as a fundraiser thing for me. I was doing that 52 week in a row freestyle thing, and I was paying for mixing. I was paying, he was hooking me up, but it was still 52 of them. So it was going to cost me over $5,000 to mix all that stuff. So I was like, all right, well, somebody suggested to me do a GoFundMe, and then somebody suggested do a Patreon. So I did fundraisers on both. And the Patreon one turned into, by nature of the platform, a like organic community of people. And it was like a way to tap into your diehard fans. Like here's 300 people that really fuck with what I'm doing and like are down to support, fly to the show, buy the merch, want to be a part of the community, want to support every month with a contribution. Cool. When I got to the end of that year, I was like, do you guys still want to do this? Because like I'm enjoying providing the content to you guys. And if you guys are cool with still pledging, I'll keep doing it. And they were like, yeah, hell yeah, let's do it. So then I organically just started doing it from there. And I've been doing it for 5 years now.
Damn. That's sick. Yeah, because I think like in the beginning, like you said, like these platforms could flip a switch at any moment. But in the beginning, like you were kind of were rewarded for having a lot of following, a lot of followers. But now it's like if you have 500 followers or 5,000 followers or 50,000 or whatever, like those you could, I don't want to use the word monetize them, but like you could provide value for those people and essentially make money if you want to. But it's not like you need a following. It's just like you need to pay attention to the people that are fucking with you. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's like the 1,000 follower thing when they're like, you just need 1,000 solid followers rather than 1 million who don't pay attention. It's like that. And I love Patreon because it's run by a musician as well. So Jack Conte, like I got to meet him one time and had a chat with him, and just his posts and videos online about like why he created the platform and what he'd been through. Like he'd been through that struggle as a musician, and he wanted to like figure out how to go direct to the fans. And so I just like the idea of the platform, especially because it was based off of music to begin with. Yeah. So I think it's a dope. I also just like realized like that exchange, when you zero in on it, is like magic. Like they want to contribute, and music business made it really hard for them to contribute because they're, companies like Spotify swoop in or Apple swoop in and just oh, like we'll just give you a little bit of pennies and they'll give us $14.99 a month and fuck that whole thing up. But the real fans all these years, even though we lost physical media and then lost the streaming, lost the digital media to streaming, I've always had real fans that came on my Bandcamp since South Beat days and buy the mixtape for $10 or select to pay more. And I always realized like, okay, cool. Like those people are there. They really want to contribute. They want to see more music. And if they want to and they contribute more, I never took that lightly. I always thought, damn, that is amazing. Like I got to treat that with the utmost respect. And then also like, I also start to feel a little bit obligated to deliver more to them because they're contributing, like I'm not just going to take your $20 and be like, cool, thanks, peace. I'm like, damn, I got to make sure that they get their money's worth, which is what the Patreon is too. Like I'm constantly trying to figure out how to make sure it motivates you. Yeah. Because you don't want to, some people start a Patreon and forget about it or just fall behind or whatever, which I get it. You get burnt out or whatever. But like that feeling that people are contributing money to you and then you're not delivering what you said you were going to deliver, that should keep me up at night. That shit fucks me up. So I try my best. I'm not perfect with it. I'm not flawless with it, but it's something I'm super like vigilant about when I can be to like maintain it and keep it going. And for now we'll keep doing it, and I don't know how long that will exist, but for now it's still working.
Nah, and it's dope because it's like, at least from my experience, like I like to support whether it's artists, comedians, or friends or whatever. It's like it has like that underground essence of it where like it's a community, but like it's on that if you know type thing. So like sometimes I've bought a shirt that like I didn't really like the design or whatever and whatever or the fit or anything, but it had the podcast or the artist that like across the chest that like not only I knew, but like only in my circle of friends knew. So it's like you want to rep the people that like you support and that like you're part of this Patreon community. So I think that shit is super dope. Like how any type of artist can like build that now.
Yeah.
For whatever, not just music.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I'm part of the ambassador program for Patreon, and what's cool about that is that we go to these meetings where like they'll show us new features or if we want to give them feedback directly on the product, like we can tell them, hey, look, this doesn't work, this works, or hey, we would love this, and it's dope. It's like a direct line to the Patreon crew. And the cool part about it is it's all different mediums. And like me and you could rattle off a list right now, all the mediums we could think of. And still, I'll be in a meeting and I'll be like, damn, there's a Patreon for that? Like, so this lady does paper flowers. Like, this is fun. And just like constantly amazed by the creativity of humans, And like that, if you're a real dyed-in-the-wool creative, like that energy is what can feed you for real. You go see a movie, then you come back and you paint a picture. Or you hear an album and then you go and write or whatever. So like these things inspire you. So what I like about Patreon is that too. It's all these different creators, all these different people monetizing. Sometimes it's just a community of people, period. And they just monetize like someone leading them into a group discussion on something. So it's like, it's cool. Like you said, it's that community. And it's also every community has its own, like, if you know vibe. Because most of them are not huge. They're small containers of people,
You think the creativity aspect of everything that you do, like, is what kind of inspires you or keeps you going through all the ups and downs of like, totally. Music and game.
For sure. No, for sure. I would have been clocked out a long time ago. And I'm struggling with it now. Like I'm like at a point where I'm like, I'm in my 40s. Like I got my kids. We've done a lot of things, like we've got a lot of accolades and done a lot of cool stuff. And like, there's still like the drive in me is there and the hunger is still there to like want more and still want to reach peaks that I never really reached that I hope to reach. But there's a lot of days where I'm just like content. Like very content with like life in general. And even on days when I feel like, oh, I'm broke, I don't know, like I got to figure out financial situation or when's the next money coming in or whatever, there's still the ability to just create, like alleviates a lot of that stress, So it's like that creative outlet. I've known a lot of people in my life that I felt like if they had that, their life would have been better for it. So it's like, I don't know, like not everybody is creative, but like, you got to find that outlet, whether it's creative or not. Like that energy that's pent up inside all of us at times when life is fucking us up has to go somewhere. Yeah. Some people put it in a bottle. Some people put it into art. Some people but if you don't put it somewhere, it fucks you up eventually, So it's
100%.
Yeah. Like creative energy. I've been lucky to know that I wanted to do it as long as I have, because there was definitely times in my life where without it, I don't know what would have happened,
Yeah, no, and I'm starting to realize too, where it's like, even if it's like, at least for me, like even if it's not DJing or something, it's like you said, like I have to put that energy somewhere. So now I feel like it's more about the creative process and putting that energy into something, not so much what is it I'm doing, or like I should be doing more of this or more of that. It's like, yeah, you've been a rapper for the majority of your life, but what's to say you can't be a thespian, full circle,
No, for sure.
like, or put that into whatever, filmmaking, writing, whatever the case is. But I feel like that's the important part that everyone has. It's just, how do you put that into something, like unlock it?
It's like when they say sometimes, like, people, when they get to retirement age, they retire and then they lose like sense of purpose.
Yeah.
It's like kind of hand in hand embedded with that. It's like that creative drive, it gives you a sense of purpose. And so like taking that, what's cool about that, unlike a regular classic job that you might want to retire from at some point, or like if you're an athlete and your body just can't really contain it, maintain it anymore, like the creative, it like could be there forever. So I mean, which I always thought was cool. So like who's to say that we can't be 80 years old dropping an album, or be David Bowie and drop an album and then be like, yeah, peace, I'm out the week after his album drops, like epic, like I want to be, I hope to maintain. My pop still does music. Like he doesn't chase it like a business as much anymore, but he still writes songs and puts songs up and puts his videos up on YouTube. So it's like, I want to be that. Like I hope to maintain that energy as long as possible.
I always think about that too. I'm like, I wonder what I'm gonna be doing at 80. Like I don't picture myself just chilling like in up north in Florida, retire. Like I wonder if I'm gonna be painting or like doing music, or I don't know. There's gonna be a new internet platform that like all the old people are on, and I don't know. But yeah, I think that should be part of your life in some capacity, like forever. If hopefully if you're lucky enough.
Yeah, I think like as long as you want it to be, like, and then if one day it turns out that you don't want it to be, like, you still have to find the place for that energy. So it's like, you retire from what you've been doing your whole life that gave you that. Now you got to hopefully pivot into something else. Like you said, like change it up. Who's to say you just can't start building birdhouses or whatever, something that gives you that fulfillment, because a lot of people do suffer from that. Even I've seen homies crash out of music and then go make a ton of money or get a real good job or whatever. And then after, they still eventually always kind of like, there's an itch there. You know what I mean? And like, they always want to either go make music or do something. Something ends up being like, it never goes away fully is what I'm saying.
And what's crazy now is you could be making birdhouses and probably make a living off of it.
Straight up. There's a Patreon for that, probably.
Patreon, Twitch, Instagram, like you streaming it, come out with merch.
I do. I hope my kids are like, what's the word? Advantageous, because like if they're not in this day and age, it's gonna make me sound like an old man, but like I'll be like, are you fucking serious? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you can learn anything you want on YouTube. You can monetize anything you want, damn near. Like I think it's a little bit oversaturated in general. So I think some kids have issue with it because it's so big now that it's almost like, how I used to look at going and submitting my demo in New York City in front of Columbia Records or whatever used to seem like an unattainable task and a monstrous thing to do. Now kids look at that like starting YouTube channels like that, and to us, we're like, all you gotta do is sign up, motherfucker, do it, like go. But I get it. Like I could see where they find struggle in it, but it's just different. I just think if once you wrap your head around it, there's the opportunities are just exponential.
For sure. Well, I'll leave you with this last question. What does creativity mean to you?
Man, I think it's at first, my first knee-jerk reaction is to say freedom. Like the creativity, like I think that's more of a business sense. It allows you the freedom to do what you want. Even on the worst days, you could have a terrible day and life could really be knocking you upside the head. But when you go to be creative, no matter what the medium is, it's like being in Inception, like you can create the world as you see fit. Like you have full freedom to do whatever you want. So like that, stepping into that zone and being able to create however you want is an amazing sense of freedom that sometimes life doesn't afford you, so being able to turn off everything else about life and just be in that creative space where you have the freedom to do whatever you want, I think is paramount to like a wonderful life, and for me, after all these years, still, it's just like, it gets me out of bed. Like creativity, like is still the thing. It's not selling records. It's definitely not selling t-shirts. It's not any of those things we've had to do to sustain in the business side of it. It's still just getting up and being like, I could just go like create some new piece of music today or make a beat or write a song or do something. That still gets me out of bed 20 years later. You know, so I think like that joy that it brings me is everything. So joy. If it's not freedom, it's joy.
I love that, bro. Well, yo, thank you for coming through.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. If you want to plug in any of your socials or
I'm Wrekonize on pretty much every platform. Wrekonize music, if not Wrekonize, and then join my Patreon is still popping. You can join the Wrecking Crew. It's patreon.com/Wrekonize. We do weekly live streams. We do exclusive music, exclusive merch. I do a Friday night live every night. It's a lot of fun, or every Friday night that's fun. So yeah, come kick it with me and check out the new music. Hopefully tons of new music. And we just dropped a new Mayday album, actually our first fully independent one since we got off our record deal of 11 years.
Congrats.
Yeah, appreciate that. It was a labor of love because the music part was the easy part. Yeah. But figuring out all the other stuff. And then now when you're indie, you got to pay for everything and figuring out how the music business brings that money back to you and at what rate it does. And it's been a crazy ride, but we got an album out. It's called Justice. It's out now, streaming everywhere, out for purchase. We're doing physicals real soon, so look out for that. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, bro.
For sure. Appreciate you.
Out.
Peace.